Welcome, everyone, to our 8th session in our 16-week series on Thriving in the New Normal. I'm excited to have everyone here, and we've got a great program put together for you guys today. We're going to be talking about the theme of maintenance agreements. And this is a very important topic, and we're going to talk about how this has revolutionized and changed many businesses over the course of probably the last 30 to 40 years since Ron Smith really kind of ran with the topic and put it out there and started introducing HVAC contractors to this concept. Before we get started, I'd like everybody to take out their phones. If you have not yet, please go ahead and open up your contacts, create a new contact. You can call that either the Goodman Business Toolbox or the Amana Brand Business Academy. I'd like you to put this phone number in, 713-856-1853. And throughout this presentation, if you see a topic that you'd like more information on, or you'd like to reach out to one of our coaches or schedule an appointment with them, please go ahead and text the appropriate term, and that will bring you to send back a link for you to click on and schedule that one-on-one training session with our coaches that we have. There's also some coaches that have different landing pages with different materials that you'll be able to grab and that you'll be able to get. So please make sure you have your phones out during the presentation and that you have this information. Each of the presenters will have this icon as they're doing their piece, so you'll be able to reference that during the program. If you have missed any of the Thriving in the New Normal sessions, we have 7 of them right now that are available to you. You can go to the Goodman Business Toolbox or the Amana Brand Business Academy, click Dealer, and then you're going to click Training Resources. You'll see the Thriving in the New Normal logo, and when you click in that, you'll see the different topics that we've covered so far. So we've got creating a plan, going virtual. It's all about people, transparency, how are HVAC contractors thriving, KPIs, and proactive versus reactive. With that being said, we're going to get into today's topic, and I've asked Tom Whitman to really introduce this. About 20 years ago, Tom introduced a concept to a group of probably in between 200 and 300 HVAC contractors. And this concept was the HVAC business engine. And when he introduced this topic to the contractors and they adopted it, we found they were able to thrive during the many disruptions we've had over the last 20 years. And so we wanted to introduce this concept to everybody that's on the call today, and hopefully you can embrace this concept as well, because I know this is what is going to help everybody come out on the other side of this with a much stronger business and a much more rewarding life because of the principles that this engine represents. Tom, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Hello, everybody. Glad to see you again, or you see me again. The HVAC business engine was introduced about 20 years ago. It's very simple. It's a very simple content. Good grief! It's a very simple program. It makes sense. Very similar to what it discussed last week about farmer mentality, right? So if we take a look at demand service and replacement sales, tune-ups, and IAQ, these are all task-related things that any residential heating and air conditioning system does. It's not necessarily positional, so we have to think about the task. So during the summer, when it's really high demand season, people are looking to have you come out and solve their problems. That's the time to start building your maintenance agreements. Now you have demand service, replacement sales, tune-ups, and IAQ. During that season, the top things that the focus on are going to be serving your customers well through appropriate demand service, replacement sales, obviously, that's going to be a major influence, and acquiring maintenance agreements. Those three. When businesses and companies focus on those three things, primarily maintenance agreements, they should be able to have enough future work left to keep their team in front of enough customers during the slow seasons to easily get through what is typically the slower months and become less weather dependent. During those slower months, the focus is tune-ups, replacement sales based on the technician's ability to convert lead opportunities, and IAQ based on the technician's ability to identify things in the home that would help the customer with health-related issues. Once we started this, we were able to actually track how many agreements per technician was necessary to keep a technician in front of enough people to get through the slow season. And it seems to be about 250 agreements for 2-visit maintenance or technician on those calls during the slower season. Will keep them in front of 4 or 5 customers per day. And when you run the numbers, as we'll get into later with this program, it's amazing because you can really replicate revenue results, get your company to the point where it's above break even steadily, and build a nice cash reserve for yourself to protect yourself from any unexpected situations such as a pandemic, because you have a group of customers that know you, that love you, and would like to invite you back into their home. So that's just a real quick overview, and then I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Tom. I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer. Jennifer's going to be talking about your digital experience, and we're going to be looking and contrasting between non-agreement customers and agreement customers. So Jennifer, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Fantastic. Thanks to both of you. Let's rock and roll. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3. All right, you guys. So here's how this works. You have to please Google in order to get in front of human beings to be able to sell the services that Tom was just talking about. When a consumer does make it to your site, or when Google is trying to file your site in the correct location, those two things are connected. They're just slightly different. Google is going to look at your website with a robot, and it has a series of mathematical equations to determine, should I place this page inside XYZ drawer? So based on the HVAC Business Engine, if you are focused on repair it during your demand season, we need to make sure that for Google and for consumers that you have 1 page per search term that they would be looking for. A minimum of 1 page of content. Google's deaf and blind. It reads Braille. It's reading the content on the page. So it can't sort and file something that doesn't exist. So under repair it, we would look at pages like AC repair, air conditioner repair, heater repair, furnace repair, ductless AC repair, ductless repair, mini split repair, boiler repair, and many other services that you guys focus on. Under service, we would have things like tune-up installation or tune-up specials, AC tune-ups, furnace tune-ups, heater tune-ups, and so forth, club memberships, other types of service. Under maintenance, we have to make sure that we have this specific type of system that they want to have maintenance done on, so Google can put it in the right drawer for that particular season. So you may have a page that says air conditioner maintenance, heater maintenance, furnace maintenance, ductless maintenance, boiler maintenance, and so forth. And same thing with installation. AC installation, heater installation, furnace installation. This kind of sounds like Cat in the Hat, Dr. Seuss book, but that's real. That's what has to happen. If a consumer goes to Google and does a search for air conditioning repair, air conditioning maintenance, air conditioning tune-up, air conditioning specials, air conditioning finance, it can't find what it doesn't exist. It cannot find something that doesn't exist. Under the improve it bucket, you guys, the majority of consumers are buying things that you sell from big box retailers because it doesn't exist, because they don't know you sell that service, because they don't know that you sell that product. So they're going to Home Depot to get their filters. Instead of signing up with you for automated shipment for filter delivery, they're going to get their air purifiers or allergy solutions or smart thermostats or home automation solutions or UV lights or dehumidifiers or generators. In fact, the big box retailers, the energy companies know that consumers don't know that you sell these things. So they're now marketing to their entire database. When in reality, when you build a relationship with your customer where they know that you can repair it, service it, maintenance it, install it, and improve it, and they know these things exist, you can build a website that allows Google to properly sort and sift each one of those items and allow consumers to connect with each one of those things when they get there. For example, top right corner. That, if you put a heat map on any website, the top right corner is the majority of all conversions. That's where people go. Schedule service, request an estimate, apply for financing, make a payment. They have to know exactly what, if you bucket all your HVAC services under one bucket, it tastes like chicken, no one knows what you do. So clearly defining the solutions you have available during your air conditioning season, your heating season, who we serve. Is it residential, light commercial, new construction, rural? Do you provide services to medical offices, construction sites? All of the different kinds of solutions that you have, indoor air quality services, other services. And finally, your maintenance agreement. Every single call to action on your website gives you the ability to provide a different consumer with a different need, a different experience. I'm going to give you an example. So, for maintenance agreements, you guys, now's the time. On your website, you can't do everything all at once, but you can do one thing at a time. When we go to your site, there should be something that clearly says, this is my maintenance agreement. These are the options. I have 3 plans. These are the different programs. You can pay with a credit card online. You can automatically subscribe and have your credit card set up for monthly, annual, biannual, quarterly billing. It's on repeat. Yay, Baron. Okay. And you guys, I love that. Thank you. So you guys, making sure that it's easy for a consumer to sign up, make sure that that information is there. The consumer is coming to your site and making a decision before you ever have a chance to talk to them. There's no such thing as a kitchen table. There's no such thing as a phone if the predecessor, your website, doesn't convince them to call. It doesn't convince them. So we've got to take the time to take the amazing information you have in your head, the 3-part maintenance agreement you have on a clipboard, get it to your website where consumers who are looking for the things that you sell can find it, be influenced to convert, to give you a call, send you a text, schedule online, buy online. Okay, so if you guys need help, this is the time to ask. Just send us a text web to 713-856-1853, and let's get on the phone and help. You don't have to have a website with us to have us help you with the content that's necessary with your website. You guys, number one thing you can be investing in right now, a permanent asset, content that speaks to people looking for the products and services you sell. Without it, it's literally like not answering your phones. With that, I'm going to pass it over to whom can help you with answering your phones, Mr. Brigham Dickinson.
Jennifer, you did a fantastic job. Thank you very much. Those websites were cool looking. In a moment, I'm going to give you some really cool ways to sell service agreements over the phone. Now, I know that there's been some debate in the past as to where or when you should sell service agreements. I would like to advocate selling it over the phone. As why? Because it's the best time to do it. They're feeling emotional angst. The homeowner is feeling emotional angst because their system isn't working. It usually does work. It's been working for years, and now it's not working, and it's 100 degrees outside, and they're freaking out. Okay, it is the best time to sell a service agreement. Why? Because it helps keep things like this, the thing that they're dealing with in the moment right now, from happening. So yes, it is the best time to sell a service agreement. Technician, they go out to what, 4 homeowners a day, 5 homeowners a day, whereas your CSRs, your people who are answering the phones, they talk to 20 people a day, 30 people a day. They talk to more people and more homeowners. And they're talking to them when they're feeling that emotional angst, which makes it the very best time to sell a service agreement. Now, before I get into all of that, I want to focus in on this pattern right here, because it is very difficult to sell service agreements over the phone. It doesn't matter what I give you for free if you're not able to use it, if they don't like you, okay? So let me just reintroduce you to this pattern real quick. We're going to stay right here for a few moments. In fact, I'm going to give you a different perspective on it. A couple years ago, my son Isaac, he's 13 now, but a couple years ago, he finished a state wrestling tournament, and he just missed out on placing in that tournament. And in fact, he got pinned in his last match, and he comes off the mat and he just kind of falls into my arms, and he's sobbing. And through his tears, he said, "Gosh, Dad, I'm just so sick of losing." And that was a heart-wrenching moment for both of us. And but it was also exciting for me, because in this moment I knew that I could teach him. And the first thing I taught him is that it's important to get comfortable being uncomfortable. He was in a position, the guy had him in a position that was painful and it hurt. And it was easier to just let the mat get smacked and get pinned instead of fighting his way out of it. And so the first thing he needed to learn was to get comfortable being uncomfortable. This pandemic, same thing. It's us getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And so when I say, hey, be positive, it sounds so cliche. It's been said a million times, but that's really what I mean, is that you have the ability to have a positive mindset, even when there isn't much to be positive about. And then you find light at the end of the tunnel where there is no light. It is all about learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And then after that, after you've decided that you're going to be comfortable being uncomfortable, period, the next step is to practice and prepare like never before. Outwork the competition in wrestling. There are people who place in state collegiate champions that do so without limbs. They don't have arms. They don't have legs. How is that possible? Well, they work their way through it and they learn to win. Confidence, practice, preparation, your listening skills, listening to your coach, caring about your opponent. You know what? When they lose, you know how that feels. Don't forget, and don't be a jerk when you win. Giving first, giving your attention, right? Asking what's missing here, what's missing in my game, in what I'm doing, and then working on the right answer, regardless of how hard it is, how long it takes, or how much you're being paid to do it, and making yourself valuable by creating value, and then being grateful for whatever comes. You see, this pattern, once you master it, once you internalize it, you're going to become a whole lot more likable and a whole lot more successful. And that's why we teach your people to learn it, to internalize this program. Now, so with that, let me show you one way to apply this pattern in selling service agreements. Next slide, Ben. Thank you. Oh, yeah. We teach everything in our coaching program, you guys. Everything. You just go to powerslingpros.com/coaching, and we put 1,000 people through this certification program every year. So within the Power Certification Program, jump to the next slide, Ben. First thing we want to do is we want to book the call, right? We want to make sure that customer is super happy and tickled about us and about who we are. You as the CSR, you're the voice of the company. You're the first impression of the company, the last if you screw it up, all right? So don't screw it up. This is your moment. Win it. How do you win it? Master the pattern for excellence. Book the call. Once it's booked, then you simply say, why? Because they like you, right? It's easy. It's simple. Mr. Jones, I'm looking at your notes. I noticed you don't have a service agreement with us. Why not? And then let them talk. Well, geez, I don't know. And guess what? If they like you, you're going to sell that bad boy. Next slide. All right, happy calls. You're calling in. You've provided a service a week ago. Hey, Mr. Jones, I'm calling because we had a service that we provided, or we installed a system a week ago. Just want to make sure it's running the way that it should. Oh, yeah, it's working great. Fantastic. Awesome. I'm looking at your notes and I noticed you don't have a service agreement with us. Why not? And then let them talk and explain. And once again, they'll go, geez, I don't know. What is it about? What's going on here? You see, you put them in a buying mode. Why? Because they like you. They like working with you. So all you have to do now is invite them to work with you. You're agreeing to serve them over time, to make sure that the thing that happened before that motivated their call in the first place, to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Well, how do you do that? Well, you keep going out. Make sure it doesn't happen again. Next slide. Okay. What if in the beginning of a call, a customer says, you know what? I just want to know what you charge to come out. Now, if you've mastered the pattern for excellence, And as a side note, I know this never happens, guys. Customers never push back on the dispatch fee. Never happens, okay? But when it does happen, here's what you do. You follow the pattern for excellence. Hey, I'm just looking, what do you guys charge to come out? It's a great question. Can you tell me more about your situation? What's going on? Well, I've got this air conditioner. It's blowing hot air. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. How long has it been doing it? Oh, last couple of days. Well, look, we can help you with that. When would you like us to come out? This afternoon would be good. Do you have a dispatch fee? It's a great question. Here's what we do. What we do is we send out the technician. He comes out, he takes a look at the situation. He determines exactly what is needed there, and he gives you a price before he starts. Now, there is a fee for that of X. When would you like us to come out? Okay, let's say they go, oh, X, that's pretty hefty just to come out and look at it, right? Mr. Jones, is it just, now this is where we get into IRAP, right? This is a really cool, free tool to book the call, but it won't work unless they like you. And how do you get them to like you? Well, you master the pattern for excellence, okay? So you get in there, hey, I don't want to pay the fee. Mr. Jones, is it just the fee that you're concerned about? Yeah, I don't want to pay it. Okay, so if it weren't for the fee, you'd move forward with the appointment. Is that right? That's right, okay. Well, there's one thing that we can do. We've got a service agreement. It's awesome. Come out in spring, come out in the fall, make sure it's running at peak efficiency. It helps things like this from happening ever, all right? The thing that you're dealing with right now. Now, if I can get you on the service agreement, as opposed to having you pay the dispatch fee, would that be enough to move forward with the appointment today? Now, you guys, you are going to be amazed at how many service agreements you sell. Now, in the back of your head, you're going, wait a minute, I'm sacrificing a dispatch fee. Time out. Tom just said in the beginning of this conversation that this is the key to business success. This is how you keep your customers. All right. Just because you work with a customer once doesn't mean that they're your customer. They're your customer if they keep coming back to you for their lifetime. Those are your customers. How do you do it? You do it with service agreements. And you train your team to master pattern for excellence so they create likability and a relationship there and trust. And then you start giving them really cool tools like this so they can sell service agreements on every call that comes in. All right. Next slide. Negotiation toolbox. Let's say that they don't like the service agreement, don't want the service agreement. Fine. We've got a coupon online. Mr. Jones, we've got a coupon online. I'm not going to make you go there. In fact, you don't print anything out. I'm just going to put it in your notes. You take advantage of this coupon. If I do this, is that enough you move forward with your appointment today? All right. And there's all kinds of things you can put in that toolbox to book the call anyway. And it's just one of the many things we teach in Power Certification. All right. We put 1,000 call handlers through this program every year. Simply go to powersalingsPros.com/coaching to learn more about that program. All right. Next slide. All that stuff I just went over, all those scripts. Yep. We put it all in the files. All you have to do is text Power and download the latest files, scripts, and you can use those at your leisure for free. Okay. All right. So one last thing before I pass it over. Maybe. Ben. There we go. Okay. All right. So we were talking to Ben about some of the Your People virtual trainings that we've been doing. And Ben and Goodman has decided to pick 2 sessions a week for 3 weeks that he's going to offer to everyone. So to get details on that, the first one's happening on the 18th of this month. It's all part of what we've been offering to dealers individually in the Your People program. But just go to the same text, type in Power. There's going to be a link there that shows you all the information you need to know about the Momentum series. So it starts on the 18th. It's a 45-minute session. There'll be 2 45-minute sessions on Mondays and Wednesdays for 3 weeks in a row. And it's going to be awesome. You're going to love it. So thank you, Ben, for that. With that, I'm going to turn the time over to our good friend, John. Take it away, my friend.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me here today. It's really a pleasure. We're going to talk a bit about ventilation and IAQ. So I have a list of things we're going to touch bases on. So when it comes to providing heating and air conditioning, we are in the HVAC industry. You take the V out of HVAC and we become hacks. And that's the last thing we want to do. So I'm going to get a lot of calls about indoor air quality in the current situation. It's like, what can we do? What can we offer? You know, do I do UV lights? Do I do POCs? You know, what do I do? And my answer is always the same. Pandemic or no pandemic, it's like we as HVAC industry, we control thermal comfort, we control humidity, we have filtration, and fresh air, ventilation. That's a must. So, you know, as we're going after the energy efficiency, you know, homes have become tighter and tighter. And with that, indoor air quality has really declined. So, what does that mean for a ventilation strategy? It's everything. So you have to offer IAQ. A brief description on or a definition of ventilation is intentional and hopefully controlled air into and out of a building. So 1 CFM in equals 1 CFM out. We want to keep inside in and outside out. So proper ventilation will go a long way into offering that for your clients. And I'm often asked how much ventilation is actually needed. So without ventilation, we cannot control VOCs, viruses, bacteria, molds. We have to have ventilation to also control for dilution of VOCs, cooking odors, carbon dioxide buildup in the house. So this is really, really critical. And people often ask how much ventilation is needed. So I always say, what are the pollutants found in each home? What are the occupants' sensitivities of pollutions? How much natural ventilation exists? How much ventilation is needed for the job? How much exhaust is in a home is something we need to look at and measure. We need to look at the building pressures. So when you're offering ventilation strategies, there's some measurements that need to be taken. And also, you can go to the next slide. So investigate, analyze, and quote. We have a diagram here that shows positive and negative pressures in the home. This is something we look real close at. By offering ventilation solutions, we can control the pressures in the home. The last thing we want to have is negative pressure. With that, we're bringing in pollutants, uncontrolled. Again, ventilation is controlled. There's a few ways that we do this. So we can offer, depending on your climate and what part of the country, the why doesn't change, just the how. So in certain parts of the country, like California and some of the milder climates, we can offer a fresh air duct. Just a quick snapshot, that's a duct connected to outside through the system, connected to the HVAC. So when it runs, it brings in a certain amount of fresh air. Also, in some of the drier climates, we can offer an HRV to bring the air. And what that does is it tempers it from outside by changing the temperatures. And that will also add fresh air for dilution and will control our building pressures that way. In the wet side of the country, we offer ERVs, which temper the air, but also remove the humidity before bringing it into the home, which is critical in the wetter climates. And also dehumid can be used both as an outside air intake, but also internally in the home and just recirculating to mitigate humidity. So these are some of the strategies that we use for bringing in a prescribed amount of outside air, fresh air. So just in summary, keeping the whole house ventilated is an absolute must. Ventilation can reduce concentrations of pollutants before they can contaminate the whole home. So we must ventilate the house. California is now mandating fresh air intakes. And I have a feeling you're gonna start seeing that across the country as we start taking a look at IAQ and building tightnesses and the such. So with that being said, you can text NCI and they will send me a text if you got any questions or would like further information. And with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Tom Whitman.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. That was great information. So I want to kind of explain something a little bit in context. There's really 3 rings we're looking for, right? How do I make the phone ring? How do I make the doorbell ring? And how do I make the cash register ring? I'll help you make that cash register ring. That's my role to play in here. So let's talk about that for a moment. That may sound a little bit direct, but it is what it is. Asking questions and listening to your customer, super important. We have to understand that no matter whoever is in front of that customer has to make it about the customer and not about us. Especially today, we need to give our customer choices. We need to give them options. Now, when the technician goes to a home, first of all, the best time to sell a maintenance agreement is when the opportunity presents itself, okay? There's a process called the risk assessment, the homeowner risk assessment that works very well. It's super simple. And we can use it for all of the things, maintenance agreements, IAQ solutions, preemptive repair, system upgrades. We're going to focus on right now maintenance agreements. So then if you could go to the next slide, please. So this is fundamentally how this works, okay? The first 3 things we want to satisfy in the customer's mind is why they called. If it's demand service, let's assume it is, what do they want to know? They want to know, can you restore operation? How much will it cost? And when can you do it? So we want to satisfy that first and wait for a response, okay? Now, there's scripting for that, but I'm going to go hypothetical so you understand the process. Number 1, the customer is going to make a decision about that repair. Now, the next step is really important, is to explain the risk in that decision. Give you an example. Your system is 8 years old. The average life expectancy is anywhere from 12 to 15. It's still under warranty because it has an 11-year warranty. The probability of future repairs are fairly high, mainly because of its age and condition. For that reason, look on the bottom, we're going to draw attention to an option. For that reason, I would highly recommend a maintenance agreement. The next time you're in a situation like this, when it's really warm, you'll go to the front of the line service as an agreement customer. Today, I can give you a 10% discount on that repair, and even better, we're going to schedule a visit to your home twice a year during our slow season to give it a complete evaluation to see if there's anything that needs to be taken care of. Would you like to go ahead with the repairs with or without that agreement? Now, you've given the customer choices. They're going to choose. Evidence has proven that if your technicians do this consistently on every single call, regardless of the age, for maintenance agreements during demand season, 50 to 60% of those customers will be on a maintenance agreement. The reason this fails is because most of our technicians have a great technical knowledge, but their people skills might need a little bit of help. And their business skills absolutely need help. That's what I do. And if you have any questions, go ahead and advance to the next slide, please. If you have any questions about how to build a profitable maintenance program, how to tune those technicians up to really be on fire with the critical performance measures, please text Coach. When you text Coach, please set up an appointment. If you don't set up an appointment, it doesn't come to me. So it's been a pleasure working with you today. Hope to hear from a lot of people. And yes, it is a free consultation, so I'm not going to charge you for it, for the first consultation. So we can receive your questions. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to the person that's going to make it affordable for our customers to get involved, Mr. Matthew.
Thank you, Tom. Very much appreciate it. Really appreciate all this information. Some great information being shared by everybody. What I want to talk about is one of the concerns we have, and one of the most common questions we get in finance is, how do I price my financing? Literally, how do I deal with the fact that there are going to be some programs that are going to be free, and then there's going to be some programs that have a 6 or 7% cost, right? And some of the contractors that we talk to, some of the dealers struggle with individually pricing them. And my response is, why would we talk about individually pricing them? Why would we not look at this as a cost of goods sold, right? Why would we not look at this the same way we look at other things? So my esteemed colleagues that we've been listening to have given me some information that I quite honestly am going to be using and sharing here, which, if we talked about cost of goods sold, if you look at the equipment, and you look at parts and materials, and you look at labor, you're pricing these things as a set fixed cost. Now, when you go through parts and materials, if you end up doing a job and you don't use as much sheet metal or you don't use as many screws, do you go back to your customer and say, hey, we're going to give you a little bit of a cheaper price because I didn't use this much sheet metal? No, that's not practical. You just made a little bit more. Labor is the same way. Do you go back to your consumer and say, this was a really easy install, we had easy access, we didn't have to go under crawl spaces, we didn't have to crawl up into an attic, so because it was less, we're going to lower the price for you? No, you write in your labor no matter what the cost and what the challenge is. It's a variable cost of goods or cost of services, right? But you've already priced that into your job. Well, finance should be the exact same way, right? If we build in a finance cost, and in this particular situation, we've got on the screen 3.7%, but if you build in the cost of your finance, now you've opened up all the options you could possibly use for a customer, and you don't have to worry about specifically, are we going to offer the free program or are we going to offer the one that's got a 7% cost? So what we want you to do is learn to actually utilize the correct methodology to get the pricing as a cost of goods. And if you come in significantly cheaper, you just increase your bottom line and put more profit there. So if we look, how do we get to 3.7? So as a rule of thumb, right, I use a contractor for $100,000 a month in sales. Don't ask me why I came up with that number, other than it's just really simple, and I want to keep his math and everything as simple as possible. So what is the real cost? I talk to contractors all the time, and they all tell me, well, my customers, I don't need financing. My customers pay cash. My customers pay cash. And when we start investigating a little bit, what they're really saying is not that their customers are stroking and handing them $100 bills. It's that their customers are using something other than finance. And in this case, a lot of them, a large portion of them, are using credit cards, right? So what we want to do is, let's take a look at the real cost of doing finance and how we can come up with this. So on this little model we've put finance at 50%, because our KPI series told us that we should be shooting for at least 50% financing. And believe me, in this market right now, you should be doing 50% financing. So if we accept the fact that you've got 10% of those people who are writing a check or giving the cash, the other 40% are probably stroking a credit card. Does that credit card have a cost? Of course it does. It has a 3% cost to process that transaction, and you should be accounting for that as part of your numbers. So if you count for that, you're looking at $1,200. Now, if you assume financing is 50% of your sales, and you're averaging a 5% cost of financing because you're picking plans that have a 5 or 6% dealer fee, you're looking at another $2,500. So in that $100,000 of monthly sales, you're literally looking at $3,700 that are going directly to the cost of being able to either offer them a financing solution or offering them a credit card. Now, all of a sudden, you'll be able to break that down to 3.7%, which is where we come to the number. Please understand, this number can vary completely. It just depends upon the contractor. It just depends upon your percentage. We had to give you some kind of scenario to give you a full understanding of what we're doing. But this is an exact number where, if you can review this every single month, take a look at your monthly sales, take a look at all the credit card transactions you have at 3% and the cost of that at 3%, and then look at your finance and see the finance costs, and then divide that by your sales, and you're going to find out what your real percentage is, and put that in your pricing as a cost of goods service. Now, I know one of the questions we're going to have here is, how did I get 5% finance costs? Awesome. I know exactly how. Ben, show us the next slide so we can show you how we can get 5% finance. Here's the best way to get 5% finance. Take advantage of the EGIA Goodman Amana program right now. If you look at the programs that we offer with Green Sky, with Mosaic, with Interbank, you're going to notice the dealer fees are right in the 5% to 6% range. So they're right in there. Now you're offering programs that the customers are interested in doing. They're looking at 6 months with no pay, no interest, right? They're looking for 12 months, no, with that 5 or 6% off that interest. But here's the best part. If you look at the 3% Goodman buy down, or the same thing with Amana, the same thing with Liberty, right? If you look at that 3% buy down, now your cost of that financing is actually less than the 5%. It's going down to 2%. And during the next 30 days, it's going down to 0 because we have the 0%. But even without the 0, going down to 2% is now money that you don't have to, like we go back to the initial, what we said with the sheet metal or the screws or whatever piece of equipment they're using, right? You don't need to use as a price drop. Now you've just used financing to increase your bottom line and put more profit into your pocket, which is what we want to try to do. We want to try to make you more effective, more efficient, and more practical as a contractor. So please text money to the number, get that over to us, allow us to work with you. We'll help you pick the right plans. We'll help you get into those products so we can keep your financing together. With that, I'm throwing the ball over to you, Ben.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Great information that's been covered so far. And as we go in and we continue our conversation on CLV, we're going to talk this time about modifiers in CLV. And before I get into this, for any George Orwell fans that are out there, if any of you have read the book Animal Farm, there is a quote as the story goes on, and on the side of the barn, they have their 7 rules, and eventually it comes to one rule. It says, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And I think that's a really important message as we look at that, because when we talk about customers, all customers are important, but some customers are more important than others. And there's been a lot of good topics and discussions that we've had so far. So if we look at the top of your screen and we look at our matrix, our customer profitability and our customer experience, we have our 4 different customer types that we look at. And when we look at all of these different customers, obviously we can see all customers are important, and they all do bring revenue in for us, but some are more important than others. We're talking about maintenance agreements. We're focusing on maintenance agreements right now, which is going to be your Explorer category, the customers that are involved and engaged with your company and are looking for more things that they can purchase and that they can buy from you. And then we have our other categories that we're looking, how can we transition them over to the Explorer category? If you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a diagram here, and we look at our company's actions. That's your marketing program, and marketing, it encompasses so much more than advertising. Marketing encompasses the look and feel of your employees, the way that your people dress, the way that your people communicate with people, the customer service experience over the phone. It encompasses the way your trucks look. It encompasses, the fonts that you use, the colors that you use, so that when people look and see something that comes from your company, they know it comes from your company. It's the Coke brand, it's the Pepsi brand, it's McDonald's. These are the things that make up your company. So once you take your marketing programs, you put that together, these actions that you do, that's going to create 3 drivers. And these are the different levers that we can pull when it comes to our customer lifetime value. And we talked a little bit about customer retention. We're going to talk about that a lot more next week. But what I want to focus on today is this customer acquisition. When we look at the different customers that are out here, we have the different categories. Which customers do we want to acquire? And the reason this customer lifetime value is so important, and I can't stress this enough, is we talked about when Brigham was going through his presentation, can we go ahead and waive that diagnostic fee? That may be okay to go ahead and waive the diagnostic fee, but unless I have figured out what my customer lifetime value is, and I know what my profitability of that customer is over time, and I know what type of customer it is that I have coming in, it may or may not make sense. And it goes back to a headline that came out in 2004. Best Buy had in the Wall Street journals, Best Buy decides to fire customers. See, Best Buy was having a challenge with customers coming in and making a high level of returns and demanding a lot of time, which was in turn costing Best Buy a lot of money. And so they determined a certain group of customers that they no longer wanted to have. Same thing with Sprint. Sprint looked at their whole entire customer base, and they had a certain group of customers that were spending a lot of time with customer service again, and they knew their lifetime value, and they knew that there was an issue with those type of customers. I am not encouraging anybody to get rid of customers. There's PR issues with that, and there's other problems that you can have with that. But understanding our customer lifetime value helps us to better understand what we can and we cannot offer as far as a way to get that customer onboarded. And this is so important for us to understand that. The other multiplier is once I bring that customer in is the retention. The longer I have retention, the more chance I have of turning that freeloader into profitability. And when we look at the chart and you look at the freeloader, the biggest challenge the freeloader has is the fact that the retention is very, very low. And so if I have a high acquisition cost for that freeloader, and I'm hoping to make it up over the long term of that journey, if that customer does not stay with me long enough, I actually end up going into the negative. If I can get that customer to stay with me over a longer period of time and engage in more services with me, we now move them from the freeloader experience to maybe the vacationer or the explorer. The prisoner, the one that comes to me because there is no other option and nobody else would pick up the phone or nobody else had a way for me to schedule the appointment. Again, if I can help that customer have a better experience and improve the retention with that customer, my lifetime value for that customer goes up. So we're going to talk about a couple of customer acquisition strategies. Number one, increase market size. So there's a couple ways I can do that. I can do it from a geographic standpoint. I can go into more communities, more zip codes, and I can expand that market size that I have. I can also expand the type of customers that I get involved with. Apple computers, they were making all of these great PCs, and a certain group of customers got involved with the Mac. What Apple decided to do is they said, you know what, we're going to create iPads and we're going to create iPods. And they engaged a whole new customer segment that they didn't have before because they created a new service that they could go in that would serve a whole new market that they had not tapped into before. And so what markets are available in your particular area that you serve? What markets can you tap into where you can find a new pool of customers or your geographical area? And these are things that we all want to think about as we're looking at how are we going to come out on the other side of this disruption that we're all in right now. Increase your marketing so we can increase our marketing spend. And if I have tracked my marketing, and I know what my cost per lead is with a particular thing, it would make sense if I just did more of that same thing and I had predictable results from it. It may or may not make sense, but do we know what type of customers that we're attracting with it? Do we know what their customer lifetime value is? And do we know if that makes sense for me to continue to use that particular vehicle for getting customers in the door? If it does, then do it. But this tracking, this is what helps us to be able to put these things together. Increase the effectiveness of our marketing programs. So Jennifer, has been talking so much, and one of the most effective ways that you can get customers and drive traffic that then turns into phone calls, which then turn into appointments, which then turns into sales, is by utilizing your digital presence. And whether that be with your website or whether that be with working with social media or getting involved in all these other different things, if that's what you want to look at and tackle, please contact CI Web Group and work with them to build out that digital strategy. And now is a great time for you to work on that and focus this. Offer discounts. I talked about the Hoover Vacuum Cleaner Company story when we first started talking about CLV. You got to be careful with your discounts and your promotions you offer. If I don't know what my customer lifetime value is and I offer a big promotion or a big discount, I may not be profitable with that customer if I don't know the retention, I don't know the lifetime value that they're going to have. Does this promotion make sense? And so we have to be careful, but discounts and promotions are a great way to get people in the door and to get them, give them the opportunity to experience the service that we provide. And then the last thing that we look at, and I think this is so important, is generate that positive word of mouth. When we look at customer lifetime value, the best way that you're going to get customers that are going to go into that explorer position is by creating a great experience for our existing customers, and they go out and talk about the services that you provide. And we're going to talk about that quite a bit next week when we get into the customer retention, and we're going to talk a little bit about net promoter scores and how that all ties into this equation and into this value. So thank you so much for listening to this piece. If you have any questions, please go ahead and reach out through the Goodman Business Toolbox or the Manna Brand Business Academy or any one of our coaches. We're more than happy to help you as we continue along with this journey. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Plugoff to talk about evolving your brand strategy.
Cool. Hey, everybody. Good morning. Good afternoon. Thanks for taking the time, as always. I need to give 2 shout outs before we get started. Shout out number 1 is to all the working moms and grandmas that are on this call. Happy Mother's Day weekend, and thank you for everything that you guys do. Working moms right now are doing a double shift, right? In the sense that a lot of them are doing the job, doing the house, doing the homeschooling, doing the caregiving. And can't say how much I appreciate that. So if you're a mom on the call, happy Mother's Day, and I hope you have a restful weekend. Shout out number 2 is to the growing Sales Lab community. Anybody on the call who is part of our Sales Lab community, thanks for your support. We grew again this week, and I'm very, very grateful. So that being said, I want to talk a little bit about a different perspective on maintenance agreements. And I titled this particular presentation, Evolve Your Brand Strategy. I want to look at maintenance agreements from a brand perspective. We've heard the word customers a lot so far, and tons of awesome information about acquiring and communicating and making maintenance agreements in the process therein affordable. I want to look at maintenance agreements from a different perspective, and that is the shift from thinking about them as customers to thinking about them as the ingredients for what I'm going to call super fans. Your voluntary advocates, your tribe, the people that are going to push your company into their networks, right? And so, historically, I think one of the reasons that the industry has struggled with selling maintenance agreements is that because unsolicited or decontextualized cross-selling, right? Unsolicited, I didn't ask for this, or decontextualized, it's not happening in the context of an event. The kind of you didn't ask for it, but can I sell it to you kind of cross-selling kind of sometimes undermines your credibility, or it could hurt the performance. When I listen to Brigham talk about the pattern to excellence, what I hear is a holistic approach to selling maintenance agreements that kind of embeds the message in a variety of touch points, which very much gives it context and also encourages the customer to think about the value-added service here, right? But I think if we approach maintenance agreements from the standpoint of we're going to treat it like a bolt-on product that the customer was heretofore unaware of or didn't ask for, I think we're creating some unnecessary roadblocks. And there have been some fantastic recommendations thus far about how to overcome those. That being said, there's the easy stuff is not really a matter here, right? When you look at successful companies that do great with maintenance agreements, they typically follow a fairly similar blueprint, right? They utilize anchor pricing. They utilize price strategies relying on the psychologies of numbers, lots of 9s, lots of 79.99s, 89.99s, 53.39. They use solid anchor pricing. They typically use a menu. And their pricing strategy, of course, lends itself to the sale. Now, how do you sell a lot of $1,000 watches? Well, you put them next to a $10,000 watch. And so the pricing strategy, the anchor pricing, the product offerings, those are great hit it down the fairway tactics, as well as good first-person testimonials, proven drip marketing programs So, the block and tackle of selling maintenance agreements has been figured out for a long time, as Ben alluded to in referencing Ron Smith, who published his book in 2007. So, we've known what the best practices are for a long time. But what I'm also very interested in, and I think that this is a different perspective on maintenance agreements, is that we have to look at them for another reason. These superfan customers are the people that, as I mentioned, are going to do a couple things. One, they will be with you over the years. Two, they become a new and voluntary source of new business. These are the people that will talk about your companies socially on review sites, that will volunteer their lives for testimonials. And by the way, they're also exceptionally open and receptive to new product offerings. In order to keep that funnel going, though, we can't treat the relationship transactionally. If you want to convert your maintenance agreement customers into superfan customers, we have to do a few things. One, the level of service has to get ridiculously high touch. If someone buys a maintenance agreement for your customer, at the very least, thanking them in person, and second, understanding why they bought it. And this is a key component here. Not everybody buys a maintenance agreement for the same reason. Our industry approaches it from the standpoint of, we want to keep your equipment running, we want to prevent any unnecessary repair costs. But they might be buying your maintenance agreement products for completely different reasons that are unique to them. And unless you understand that, and Brigham has always talked about this, unless you really understand the emotional reasons behind their decision to join your tribe, we're overlooking a tremendous opportunity to broaden the platform of our sales offering. If we approach maintenance agreements rather narrowly from the technical side, not that it's an invalid reason, but it eclipses so many of the other emotional reasons why people invest in something like that. Once you've got that insight, right? Once you know what value means to your customers, and that's always a very interesting topic. We can't treat the concept of value in a uniform manner. You then have the opportunity to continue to grow your super fan base by embedding it into your products, your prices, your promotions, and the placement of your maintenance agreement conversations. So when I talk about maintenance agreements, I really think about the long game, right? Your maintenance agreement customers, certainly they represent recurring revenue, as Thomas mentioned. To me, more importantly, your super fans in this day and age are another form of voluntary low-cost marketing. In person, on review sites, on social media platforms. Yes, it's a revenue and a recurring revenue source. It's much bigger, though, than the transaction if you think about the ways in which people network and share information. And ultimately, the only thing that people really trust is a direct referral. So I'm going hard in the paint on brand right now. And I'm really convinced that it is the niche in the industry that can help us continue to grow and convert opportunities if it's done right. So I would invite you to learn how to start doing that. Next Wednesday, there'll be at 9 a.m. Pacific, Leverage Your Brand for Profit. It's a coaching hour to 1 hour. I'm doing it. 3 takeaways. 1, how to develop a crystal clear one-liner that explains what your brand is when someone says, well, why are you different? Takeaway 2, a formula for communicating your brand across a variety of platforms. And then 3rd and finally, a plan for leveraging your brand during in-person or virtual sales calls so that you can close more deals. 1 hour, it's free. And if you are ready to build a brand that works for you, hit me up via email. I'll send you an invitation. But I think this is a massive opportunity for every contractor out there to sharpen your brand and use it to close more deals. So thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you so much, Matthew, and everybody else that's presented. And as we close out this session, I want again just to remind everybody, continue to embrace technology. There's a lot of great resources and tools out there available for you. And you can check with our coaches. They've got a lot of these tools available to help you be more productive, to help you be more efficient, to help you to be able to serve more customers. in the way that they want to be served. And as always, thank and encourage your people. Until next week, everybody be safe. Have a good week. Enjoy your family this weekend. And we'll see you all at our number 9 session. Thank you.